Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 2. Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. God will hide the truth in something, shroud it with wisdom, and only after you try to seek him out, pray for his wisdom, try to figure out how he thinks about it by reading his Bible, will you understand. Will you understand a matter? It says, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So this shows the distinction between God, who knows everything, and he hides things. So you have to seek out him to understand what he says. And then it says it's the honor of a king to search out a matter, which tells you that the fundamental distinction is that an earthly man-made, or a man has to seek something out because he doesn't know everything. God knows everything and he hides it. So in order to get what God has and what God says, that wisdom, you got to seek after God. So the question is, who is the king seeking after? Today, I would like to speak about how Judge Merchan, however you say his name, this guy broke the law. This guy broke the law. He is in a lot of trouble if people actually learn the law and want to go after him. I don't know if President Trump wants to do that. I don't know if his attorneys will want to do that because it will actually destroy the attorney system. But we'll talk about it here, and I'll lay out the case as to why it's very easy to show how Judge Merchan had maladministration, which is unlawful. He actually could go to jail. Trump would be scot-free of all things, not just because he got elected as the president, but because the Constitution protects him, and they can't stop it. So that's what I'd like to speak about. Before that, I'd like to point you to patriotswitch.com/Jaron. This is the way that you can support me and the work that I do. Take the money that you're already spending on household products, go online to patriotswitch.com/Jaron. When you sign up, someone like myself or myself will call you. We'll get in contact with you and say, listen, this is it. It's online, direct product purchase of goods delivered right to your door. If you brush your teeth, this is for you. If you wear deodorant, it's for you. If you're a woman, you got makeup, this is for you. All natural products, no hazardous toxic chemicals, no foreign interference or participation at all. Exclusively 100% American manufacturing. Go to patriotswitch.com/Jaron. It's a blessing to me whenever you shop. Proverbs 25 and verse 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of the kings is to search out a matter. So what's the issue here? The issue here is that Judge Merchan broke the law. I'd like to go to my overhead shot. And if I go to my overhead shot, this is a printout of the order that Judge Merchan did on November 22nd. And I'm just going to go over it. I'm going to go over this article. I'm going to go over this order where the judge, Juan, or Jawan, as I used to think it was, whenever I was in grade school, before I understood like Spanish had the soft J or the H. I always thought it was Jawan or Juan M. Merchan. Oh, it's Juan Merchan. This stay, right? He makes 3 orders, or 4. It's ordered, right? So he's got 4 orders, and we're going to walk through it. But I just want to show the presumptions, and I want to just slow things down and allow you to walk through everything methodically. The reason why this is important is because there is a crisis. There is a cancer of judicial maladministration in America. Very simply, judges do not begin with the text of constitutions. Play that sentence 1,000,000 times over. Judges must begin with the law. When it regards your rights, the law is the Constitution. There's no such thing as Congress passing legislation that may interfere with your rights. Period. This, of course, is not taught to attorneys. Most attorneys, whenever they go join the bench and become judges, they have the same thought process. And one of the very dangerous things that hurts the American people is that we do not know that things must be made known judicially to judges. So a judge can know something, but if you have not brought it right in front of his face and say, hey, look at this, you have not made it known judicially. And this is why I point people to my teacher, Dave Jose. You can find him on X at Real Dave Cares for you, number 4, letter U. But he teaches the fundamentals. He teaches the it is written method, which is what Jesus used in the Bible to show what was written to make your argument. Why do I have to say things in my own words? Why do I have to think of things whenever the Bible can say it? Now, the reason why this is so important is that this prosecution for President Trump was politically motivated. The New York State legislature, hating Trump, wanting to punish him, wanting to prevent him from being elected president again, passed a dumb, stupid statute. And this dumb, stupid statute, for the first time, was passed and used against Trump for prosecution. This is the hush money trial. This is the thing that there's no witnesses, that what's-her-face Stormy Daniels say didn't happen. This is that trial. One witness in a civil case, and the whole thing is based on this idea that, well, President Trump paid $130,000 through his rat attorney Michael Cohen and the such. It's a hoax. The whole thing was a hoax, and it always was. And there was a lot of political pressure. There was a lot of spotlight and media turned against the judge because the judge had a daughter who's a crazy commie leftist, and she did some fundraising for Kabbalah or whatever. The guy hates Jesus, and he's a political leftist. And so he's wanting to attack Trump, to use the position he has in trust in the government to attack Trump. This is very simple. This is not difficult to understand. This is what was going on. But yet, because people didn't slow down to learn the Constitution, including Trump's dumb attorneys, they're not arguing the highest law. They're arguing, well, if it pleases the court, will you please not attack us with this new and recent statute? And it seems like the entire nation of attorneys and law experts are using dumb stuff, using stuff that doesn't matter, using stuff that goes against the Constitution, using stuff that they can't prove in law, except for the fact that, well, this is what it's been done for the past 80 years. This is how law and the legal system works. That doesn't mean that it's the law. That doesn't mean that it's lawful. That doesn't mean that it has authority to do what it is that you're doing. And this is the folly that Americans have. We've been miseducated out of our first estate. And President Trump too. We can have good instincts to know something is unfair, but because we haven't learned our constitutions, we don't really know why something's wrong. We can look at it and be like, that doesn't make sense. But because either we don't read our Constitution, we don't believe our Constitution, or what I believe is the case, we fear government more than God, we don't actually go directly at the problem. So, I'd like to slow things down, and I'd just like to show the judge's own words. I'm just going to look at the words of the judge, nothing else. I don't need to look at Trump's people. I don't need to look at the state's people. I don't need to look at any of this stuff. I'm going to zoom in on the judge, and we are going to meticulously pull it apart for no other reason for than to you, the people, to see what it looks like to have real life law issues circled, highlighted, expanded to where you can see it. So that's what we do. Now, if you want to do this in real time, if you want to regulate government, I would encourage you to go to livelocal.church, livelocal.church, bind government with wisdom. You should only really join if you're a Christian. If you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, don't join because it's based on the Bible, and if you hate Jesus, then the Bible's not going to make sense. So it's really not going to be a benefit for you. But if you are a Christian, you do love Jesus, and you don't like the direction of government, and you wish to use Christ's wisdom that is already the foundation of the law, you want to use that to regulate your government, go ahead and join at livelocal.church, livelocal.church. There is a newsletter that comes out every other week. It's got tips and insights and all sorts of stuff. In fact, I did a stream in the secret Telegram group a couple days ago explaining due process. And that stream alone, which is free for members of the livelocal.church community, that stream right there is worth the rest of any monthly membership you would pay for your life, because it literally shows what's going on as it's happening. So go to livelocal.church, livelocal.church. The next newsletter, Lord willing, comes out on Sunday. So here we go. I'd like to first, before we do this, I'd like to go to and just draw our normal system. I want to get back to drawing the express trust system. So let me bring this up, what's it called, this camera in front of me. But all we want to do is we want to show the express trust system. So we're going to start with Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? So God is the creator, the master of all things. God's plan for redemption and salvation was always Jesus Christ, his death, his burial, his resurrection, right? The death on the cross, the tomb, the rock being rolled over the tomb, and then the rock being rolled away. So that little spot, the rock's being rolled away. Jesus physically comes out. When Jesus comes out, he talks about Matthew 28:18 and verse through 20. He says, all power in heaven and earth is given to me. So this is a grant of power. All power was granted to Jesus from God the Father. So God the Father gives Jesus control of everything. So now Jesus has the keys. When Jesus has the keys, what does Jesus say? He gives the Great Commission and he says, go. Go is a command. This is a battle cry. This is a spiritual invasion. This is a war of domination. There is no negotiation. There's no compromise. There is no peace with evil. We use Christ's wisdom to do the things that he commands us to do. Amen. So when America started, you have we the people. We the people. And in America, the founders, this is F, the founders were Christians. So because the founders were Christians, they understood Christ's wisdom because they read the Bible. The very first thing the founders did was they reserved to themselves their rights. Now, a reservation is something that the government can't touch, ever. Play that last 5 seconds 1,000,000 times in a row. Now, the rights that we were reserved are the rights that come from Jesus. This is why if you hate God and you don't have a biblical understanding, you won't understand our government, and you're actually dumb, and you're going to make stupid, dumb arguments like is made or like is exposed in this order. But so our rights are life, because that comes from Jesus. Our what's it called? Liberty, right? Property, you've got due process, you've got speech, you've got privacy, right? You've got all these rights, okay? Then the founders understood that there is a private realm, which is where private people are, and there is a public realm that's under the jurisdiction of all government. So then they created, right? Because an act of creation is a thing that a sovereign does, because the people created, just like God created everything, the people created what? Government. How do we create government? We wrote constitutions. Now there are 50 plus 1 constitutions, 50 state constitutions, 50 state constitutions, and 1 federal constitution. Every single constitution is going to reserve the rights. Every single constitution is going to have a legislative branch, it's going to have an executive branch, and it's going to have a judicial branch. Okay, those are your 3 branches of government. Now, everything that government has and can do comes from the Constitution. There is no such thing as the legislature using something that doesn't come from the Constitution. There's no such thing as the executive using something that doesn't come from the Constitution. There's no such thing as the judicial using something that doesn't come from the Constitution. All power comes from the Constitution, and all power in the Constitution comes from the people. The people, because they created the Constitution, they held some of their powers outside of the Constitution. This means that my right to life, let's say Jaren's right here. If Jaren is right here, Jaren's life is not inside the Constitution. Jaren's liberty is not inside the Constitution. Jaren's property is not inside the Constitution. Jaren's due process is not inside the Constitution. So whenever Jaren comes up to government, Jaren reaches down into the kit bag that Jesus gave him, right, called rights. Jaren reaches down here, pulls out a right, and smash. And that's what we do. This is how people use powers in government. Because rights equal powers of free action. This is why the government can never tell you how to use your rights, because your rights are powers of a free action. And if the Constitution says here's what your rights are, whenever you use your rights, you are using power that the Constitution that is automatically authorized in the Constitution, and so the legislative, executive, and judicial can't do a dang thing about it. Period. Okay, so this is what's going on. This is our trust. And by the way, shout out to my teacher, a guy named Dave Jose. You can follow him on Twitter at Real Dave Cares for You, number 4, letter U. All right, so here's where I want to get to this. Now, let's bring this up a little bit. All right, so we've got this right here. And if this is a blessing to you, if any of this makes sense, I would please go to patriotswitch.com/Jaren. You already buy toothpaste. You already buy deodorant. Your wife has lipstick and makeup and stuff that I don't understand, but she's got it. You clean your floors, don't you? You wash your hair, don't you? Don't you do dishes? Don't you do laundry? If you do these things, if this is what you do and this content is valuable to you, go to patriotswitch.com/Jaren. You help America's economy. You buy American, better products, better pricing. It's really good. It's a blessing to me. Now, let's get back to this. Let me just go through this. Now, if I were to be involved with this, I would only pick one particular issue. I would not do a million, billion, jillion things. That's dumb, right? What is so stupid is the way that attorneys are taught. Let me get your eyeballs. Attorneys are taught that they have to say a bunch of different stuff. I mean, the maxims say that no one is restricted to just one defense. But there's so much power in precision in saying one thing. If you say one thing and it's true and they can't defeat you, it crushes everything. And I'll just tell you, the easiest way to beat everything is to know this. The easiest way to beat everything the government does is to know this. If you do not know your rights, you will not beat what the government does. If you start arguing down here, you're doing dumb stuff. Okay? You're doing dumb stuff. So don't do dumb stuff. So here we go. On November 19, 2024, this court received separate submissions from defendant and the district attorney of New York County, Danny, or the people. Now, right there, what's going on right here? What's going on right there? You've got, so if we just take this as New York, so this is, let's say this is the New York Constitution, right? Because that's where the case is. That's where the court is. So you've got the judicial, right? And you've got Trump on one hand, and you've got the Danny people, right? What'd they say? The Danny people. The Danny people are the district attorney of New York County. So you've got the Trump versus Danny. Trump versus Danny. Now, what is Danny? Danny is an entity. So we're going to put a box around Danny. Danny is an entity. Where does Danny come from? Come on, camera. Stop being stupid. Stop being stupid. There we go. Where does Danny come from? Danny comes from the Constitution. So we know that Danny doesn't... Come on. Get the lighting right. Why is the lighting bad? There we go. I don't know why the lighting's bad. Danny comes from the New York Constitution. So if Danny is an entity called a county, where does Danny come from? Danny comes from the Constitution. This means that Danny does not have the same rights as Donald Trump. See, this is Donald Trump right here. So Donald Trump has rights that are reserved. So liberty is Trump's right. Property is Trump's right. Due process, hello. Due process is a Trump right. And how do we know this? Well, if we go to our New York Constitution, I didn't pull it up, but if you go to your New York Constitution, you can look at that and you can see your New York Constitution, and you want to go Article 1, and you want to read your Bill of Rights. But right there, Trump, one of the We the People, has rights that is outside of government. So he's got a case where it's him versus a county. So what is this going to use? The legislature will make a statute, and this dumb statute will be called the what? Criminal procedure. Criminal procedure. We'll get to that here in a second. Procedure. So there's a statute called the criminal procedure that the judge, in this case, Mershon, this judge is using the criminal procedure. He's going to quote it here in a second. But the first thing I want to point out is that Danny is a county. A county is an entity. An entity is not a flesh and blood man or woman. So this means that the county doesn't have rights equivalent to the man or woman. Make sense? Now, the reason why this is important is because in America, people are sovereign. We live in a free nation with no king or queen because we beat the crap out of the Brits and we said we want our own nation. So because Trump is one of the people, Trump is sovereign over this dumb county. So now the county has to have some type of right. It's got to have some type of authority to come against Trump. The authority that the county is using to come against Trump is the dumb statute that they passed. We'll call it the Get Trump statute. So when the legislature passes the Get Trump statute, the Get Trump statute is a statute, comes from the legislature. The legislature has powers from the Constitution. The Constitution only has powers from the people. And if the people reserve to themselves the right to due process, then before you go after Trump's liberty or property, you have to go due process. The legislature was never given the power to change due process. So Trump has this due process, but the legislature has passed dumb statutes that say this is the due process. So Mershon is actually using a legislative process instead of a constitutional due process. So that's the first thing. So you've got constitutional due process versus a legislative process. That's the first thing, right? But then you've got this right here. They're saying, Danny is saying what? Danny or the people. But the question is Danny as an entity the people? Because this is the people, and the county, who's down here, is supposed to represent the will of the people. But the people of New York wrote the Constitution and reserved what? Their rights. So if the people wrote the Constitution, and the Constitution written by the people reserves the rights, how can an entity created by the Constitution, how can this thing right here be called the people? What we have and what I'm identifying is a status argument. Because watch this. I can't even spell. A status argument. Watch this. If Danny is a county and it's construed as the people, that means that what the people want is legitimate. But question, how can the people go against Trump's reserved rights with inferior powers? If the Constitution reserves due process to Trump, and the Constitution that created the legislature wrote the statute's called the criminal procedure, how could the criminal procedure call an entity the people that can go against what the people chose to reserve to themselves? Does that make sense? So how does people, in quotes, nullify Constitution? How is that possible? How is it possible that a county can go against the text of the Constitution? That's very interesting to me. This shows that it can't. So whenever the court, which by the way, we could dive into that one, because I guarantee this right here is not a court of record. I'll let you guys figure that out. In fact, I would go to Dave's court of record webinar. Court of record webinar. So I'd go to Dave's court of record webinar and actually figure out, and you will realize that this court is actually not a court. But that's for Dave to teach you. So now Danny's construed as the people. So we've got that, right? So we've got the issues. Constitutional due process versus legislative process. Status, people are nullifying the Constitution because a county is being called the people, but yet somehow this county and this people has a prerogative that goes against one of the people's reserved rights? That don't make sense. Let's keep going. We're not even the first sentence in, by the way. Seeking various forms of relief. Forms of relief. What are we looking at here? We are looking at equity. These are equitable relief. How do we know that? Well, one, they'll tell you, but two, they're not actually arguing the law. No one's arguing the law. Everyone is going to be arguing how we should be treating each other. You should stay these proceedings because that treats me fairly. That's an equity argument. So the different forms of relief are equity. Here, Trump's attorneys should be arguing constitutional due process. Why? Because that's law. Constitutional due process is law, and equity must follow the law. So if they're looking for equitable forms of relief, that shows you that they're not arguing constitutional due process. They're not arguing the law as written in the Constitution. They're arguing equity because they've granted presumptions of this relationship. They've granted that these people have a relationship. You should do this, I should do this, and so there's a relationship there. But there is no relationship because you guys are breaking the law. You can't have this relationship and therefore equitable consideration. You can't have equity if there's no relationship. There's no relationship because the dumb entity is using some stupid statutes to go against Trump's due process. So if the entity is using inferior authorities to come against the due process, Trump, as one of the people, should use his rights to smash the freaking Constitution in the face of the judge. But he ain't doing that because his attorneys don't know that. And why would they do that? Because it kills the case. And this directly looks to money. Okay, so someone will get that. The respective applications are decided as follows, right? So this is all discretion. And whenever you argue your rights, you're never supposed to give any judge discretion because it's your rights. Why would you ever let them figure out, have their own caprice or their own whim? That's dumb. It is hereby ordered that defendants request for leave to file a motion to dismiss pursuant to criminal procedure law. Boom. Statute. This right here shows you that it is not a court of record and it's not moving by common law. This right here is maladministration because the Judge Mershon, is presuming he has the discretion to give a procedure that the Constitution prohibits. That right there, he could go to jail for. Is granted, and it is further ordered that the joint request for a motion schedule is granted. So here's a motion schedule is each side agreeing to how things do stuff. That's dumb. A motion schedule. You have to have all your motions in by this day. You have to do all this by this time. This is all to make this complex. This is complex. This is not simple. Because it is not simple, it is ambiguous in its nature. It is arbitrary, even if it's uniformly applied. The reason why attorneys do this is so that they can lay out what they're going to do in their case. Instead of, you bring your stuff, I bring my stuff, let's get the jury and let's hit it. You bring your stuff, I'll bring my stuff, bring the jury, we'll argue, boom, done. That's common law. What this is some dumb junk that extends the life of the case and gives attorneys an excuse. Well, I'll file this appeal. We have a court appearance. We got this. All the while, it's chingity ching chong ching ching chong. It's ka-ching. It's all about the money. Money, money, money. All right. Defendant's motion is due by the close of business Monday, December 2nd, 2024. This is just good order and saying, hey, we're gonna finish stuff. The people's response, see, if I were in this case, I would attack this like no one's business. By granting the presumption that the county is the people, it positions psychologically the people as the one coming after Trump. And that's not what Trump is not against the people. Trump is against political ideologues. But Trump's people didn't attack this notion. See, I would have attacked that from the get-go. You don't grant any presumptions. You do not give one single inch. Never, ever. You don't call these people the people. Because the people prosecute using the law. The people don't prosecute violating constitutional due process. Slow that down, play it 50 times. The people's response is due by the close of business Monday, December 9, 2024. The other part that I don't like about this is that this is giving a requirement to the people. The people are sovereign. Judges are down here. Judges are down here. So the judge is down here telling the people what to do. How does the servant tell the master what to do? That don't make sense. The court will not accept reply briefs, and it is further. Okay, so he's just stating the rules of the court. But this right here, right? What's the maxim say? The rules of the practice of the court is the law of the court. So this is a court telling you we're not going to accept reply briefs. So you can't answer. We just want motions. I just want motions because I want all the discretion so that I can tell what's going on, right? This is the judge's paradigm, presuming that the judge is in charge of everything that's going on. The judge is just the umpire. The judge is not in charge. The one in charge of the case is the one who brought the case, the plaintiff. They're in the driver's seat. They're the ones turning and doing stuff. If you don't see that, if you don't understand that, you don't really understand the warfare that's happening. Ordered that the application to stay decision, this right here is equity. This is equity, right? So this is another equitable principle. This is not law. This is equity. On defendant's CPL, what's a CPL? Criminal Procedure Law. So again, this is statute. So they're using this. Now, the reason why we hate this so much, we've already said that you've got constitutional due process. But Section 330.3, simple one, like this right here, the New York legislature could change tomorrow. They wrote this statute to go against Trump. What's to say they don't change it after they get Trump? And if the statute is the here again and could be gone tomorrow law, it's fleeting, it's arbitrary, it's dismissive, it's vapid, it's effuse, it's ephemeral, it's illusory, it's arbitrary, it's not real, it's fake, it's a hoax, it's dumb. It's completely agenda-driven, which means it's not judicial. The judge is showing he's not being judicial. The judge is showing he's not using maxims. He's using what the legislature gives him. He's breaking the law. This blends the judge. It merges the judge with the legislature. You're supposed to have an independent judge and an independent legislature. This merges them to where the judge is literally doing what the legislature says, which is a freaking hoax. But this motion is granted pending the receipt of the papers from all parties submitted in accordance, right? So there's a rule with the motion scheduled noted above. And it is further ordered that the joint application for a stay of sentencing, this is again equity, for a stay of sentencing is granted to the extent that the November 26, 2024 date is adjourned. Now, question. If you've got a legitimate crime right? If one of these people does a legitimate crime and you go here, why are you staying the sentencing? If a jury has said you are guilty, if a jury has said he's guilty, convict him, and all that, why would you delay? Why would you delay sentencing? Based on what principle? He's guilty, right? If he's guilty, shouldn't you sentence him? See, what this is an artifice. This is fake. This is subtle. This is a sleight of hand is what this is. Right? To stay the sentencing is to say it's equity. Equity is about doing righteousness to people. It's about treating people fairly. If Trump has been convicted, there is no such thing as treating him fairly now because he's guilty. And if he's guilty, you sentence him. That's the law. But they're doing this as equity. If he's guilty, the law says sentence him. Send him to jail. Do whatever it is. But this is a fake court. Not following the law, so they use notions of equity to bring in these sleight of hands, these artifice, this maladministration is what this is. The judge is presuming he has discretion in the matter. And by presuming discretion, he's actually changing how people regard Trump's rights, which is unlawful. And he can't do that. He should, if he was actually following the law, he should sentence Trump forthwith. He should absolutely say, all right, President Trump, you got condemned or convicted. Come here, let's sentence you and take you to prison. That's what he should do if he was following the law. But he's saying there's a stay of proceedings based on equitable principles. Based on what? Based on what? The only thing that's changed is that President Trump got elected. That's the only thing that's changed. The only thing that's changed, right? The statutes didn't change. The evidence didn't change. The conviction didn't change. The only thing that changed was POTUS. That's it. The only thing that changed was that Trump was elected to a public office. Now, if Trump was elected to a public office, what's really the consideration? The consideration is the dumb judge knows that Trump will now have access to investigators, prosecutors, and he will bring his people to come hammer the judge. That's why the judge is using sleight of hand, fake stuff, and equitable principles to delay sentencing. The reason why he's doing it is because he's scared to death. He's scared to death that Trump's going to come back at him when the truth is that this whole thing is a freaking sham. And if you understood the Constitution, you would be able to walk these people through everything that we just did, and you would be able to show the fact that what's going on in this nation is that, generally speaking, judges don't start with the constitutions. Period. They start with some derivative dumb junk, civil procedure, criminal procedure, case law. They start with stuff that's derivative. And when I say derivative, I mean downstream. Hold on, let me get this back so you don't see the bleed through. When I say derivative, I mean if this is the origin of the law, the people ordain the law. We wrote the law. So because the people ordain the law, we are the fountainhead of justice. We are the origin of the law. The law starts here. And the reason why this is so powerful is because we're a common law nation, and the common law comes from the Bible. So the Bible gives us the common law, and from the Bible, because our founders were Christians, we position ourselves as the origin of government, the origin of the law, so the Constitution secures our power. So whenever we use our powers, the government in its entirety will obey because it is our servant. But when you don't know this, these judges or the executives, people in agencies, president, governors, the such, or legislators will do stupid stuff and they will go against the text of the Constitution. So if a judge does not begin with the Constitution, the judge is not acting judicially, because the judge is supposed to be the interpreter of the Constitution. So if a judge does not begin with the Constitution, that tells you the judge is not looking at the law. The judge is making a presumption, and that presumption, by not starting with the Constitution, but by starting with some dumb gay statute, they are making a presumption. And the presumption they're making is that if the statute comes from here, right, let's say this is section 330.31, right? If a judge starts here, the judge is presuming that here is the same as here. This is the text of the Constitution. This is the output of the legislature. The text of the Constitution is not the output of the legislature, so if the judge starts here, the judge is not acting judicially. The judge is supposed to start here, but if the judge starts here, this is maladministration. This right here is maladministration, which is a crime, which goes against the Constitution, which goes against your rights. This right here is just called judicial inquiry. And this is what 99% of judges in the country don't do. 99% of judges do not begin with the text of the Constitution. 99% of the judges begin with some dumb gay statute. As a result of this, you don't have judges acting judicially. This right here, what I just showed you with that picture, that's worth a lot of money. Like, that right there is exactly the issue that attorneys haven't been taught that. Attorneys haven't been taught that judges go to the text of the Constitution. Now, let me explain. The reason why they haven't been taught that is because the law schools teach them the system that's been constructed outside of the Constitution, and that's how they make their money. So literally everybody who goes to law school learns these civil procedures and criminal procedures, and that's all they argue. So whenever you try to argue Constitution, they look at you like you're a sovereign citizen. They call you stupid. They say you don't know anything. He doesn't understand the law. No, you moron. I'm the one quoting the text of the Constitution. You're the dummy that's starting with some dumb judge from 50 years ago. I don't care about what some dumb judge said 50 years ago. I care about what the text of the Constitution says, because that's what you swore to. The text creates your office. You are only in the position you are in because the text created the office. The dumb statute did not create the office. You, quoting me statute, are breaking the law. And if people figure that out, when people figure out you're supposed to give me the text of the Constitution, but you're giving me this, they will show the judges' hands are dirty. They will show that the judges are not acting independent from the legislature. And it will, because there's no answer to it, because it's true. Anyway, most important thing that I do is I preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, and that is that Jesus came to earth, lived a perfect and sinless life. He took the cross. His body was broken. His blood was shed. He died on that cross. He was buried in the tomb, and 3 days later, he physically rose from the grave. When Jesus physically rose from the grave, it proves that he's got the power of life over death. It proves that what he taught was true. It proves that he's the Son of God. It proves that all power in heaven and earth is given to him. So when Jesus says the only way to get to God the Father is through him, you must believe that Jesus' blood washes away your sin. The sin separates us from God. We have to have a sacrifice for that reconciliation. God must punish sin. He must, condemn lawbreakers. Jesus never broke the law. So when we break the law, Jesus' blood is applied to our sin and washes it away. Now, the way that you covenant with Christ is you must hear the gospel as we've portrayed. You must hear the gospel as the Bible teaches. The Bible says faith comes by hearing, and hearing from the word of God. You must believe it. If you don't believe what the Bible says, you don't trust God. You don't believe what he says. Jesus says in Matthew 4 and verse 4, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded from the mouth of God. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 4. So now that you've heard it, now that you believe it, there's a call to action. We know that there's a call to action because whenever the Jews on Pentecost in Acts chapter 2 heard the gospel for the very first time, they said, men and brethren, what shall we do? We hear you. We believe you. What do we need to do? The reason why they asked that is because earlier in the chapter, in Acts chapter 2, Peter is referencing Joel, the minor prophet, Joel chapter 2 and verse 32. In that minor prophet in the Old Testament, Joel says, in that day, the people who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So whenever the Jews heard Peter preach about Joel, and they understood, what shall we do to be saved? That's what they're asking. What do we have to do to be saved? And Peter's answer is, repent and be baptized for the remission of your sin. Right? And you will receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. In order to be into Christ, you must be baptized into Christ. You are participating in his death, his burial, and his resurrection. That is what baptism is. It's a picture of Christ's death, burial, resurrection, and that is what Jesus requires to covenant with him. When you covenant with Christ, God will add you to his church. You will now be a member of Christ's body, and your sins are washed away. You get the benefit of Christ's blood washing away your sin, but you also get now to walk with Christ for the rest of your time. You will live with him for eternity. The old man has gone. The new man has come. You are a new creation. You have the opportunity to read the Bible, to understand it, to read it, to listen to him, and do what he says. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing time. Believe the gospel. Obey the gospel, my friends. I've already pointed you to patriotswitch.com/Jaron. I would direct your attention. Lastly, let's bind government with wisdom. Let's go to livelocal.church, livelocal.church, small membership fee, newsletters every other week. The powerful thing here is you get actionable tips, you get real life information, you get podcasts, you get audio, you get all sorts of stuff. Sign up. It's a blessing to me. livelocal.church, livelocal.church. Until next time, my name is Jaron Jackson. I do love America. Don't quit. Let's go to war.